It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Got a number of emails over the last couple of days asking about what my fixation with Sean O'Brien, the president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, is, and why I'm going after him. And I got a bunch of emails accusing me of all kinds of weirdness. Reality is I'm not going after Sean O'Brien. I'm not going after him at all. I disagree with him. And also, this is what democracy looks like. Questioning leaders in high positions, the people that you elect, who have to stand before you and justify their actions so that they can get your vote again. This is what democracy looks like. If you don't love it, you don't know what democracy is. This is what it looks like. So my disagreeing with him viscerally, wholeheartedly, without question, on the issue of non-endorsement, on the issue of doing the thumbs up with Donald Trump, that's part of what democracy looks like. And as a member of that union, a dues-paying, card-carrying member, it's one, my right, but also politically, as a political commentator, to have one of the most powerful unions in the country have its leader do something so curious, so bizarre, so out of line with the norm and with reality, you have to question what exactly was going on. And I said back in January, when the thumbs up picture came out with Sean O'Brien and Donald Trump, and it looked more like a hostage video, or as I had observed back then, O'Brien looked like a guy who just got caught cheating on his wife. It made me wonder back then, why? How is you go from marching in the streets with Bernie Sanders to then flipping the script entirely, doing a political 180 and really supporting Trump? Now, look, I understand Trump can be very, very convincing. I understand he can be very, he can sell, a popsicle, a ketchup popsicle to a white woman, a woman wearing white gloves in the desert. I get that. But when everything that Trump does is the antithesis of what labor needs, you have to wonder. You have to wonder why an endorsement wasn't given to Joe Biden and ultimately Kamala Harris, because Harris cast the deciding vote on the pensions. When Trump was waxing poetic about, with Musk about firing striking workers, when Trump has said he supports right to work, when his NLRB did all the horrible stuff it did for 4 years, you would think no brainer. But that's not what happened. And I look at what's going on at the Washington Post and the LA Times and them not endorsing. Is it because there's a threat on the table? Is it because they fear retribution? Or is it because they got? Is it because there's something there? Now understand, Donald Trump is a guy who went to the Roy Cohn School of Politics. Blackmail, bribery, all of that stuff, I believe, is on the table. And for me to question what the leadership of one of the most powerful unions in the country is doing should be a question that newspapers are asking, should be a question that voters are asking about. How is it that Trump was so bad for organized labor as president that you have a major labor union president virtually endorsing him by not endorsing the people who have been really good? The best president of my lifetime for labor issues, unquestioningly, has been Joe Biden. Kamala Harris cast deciding votes to help it make it better for working people. That's reality. That's the facts. So to question me on why I have a grudge or a vendetta or a person, it's not personal. It's political. I believe that he is making a massive failure of leadership. And I'm curious what made him make that decision, especially when every joint council, every local across this country who's has endorsed Harris and Walz in this election. It doesn't seem that difficult. And when we come back, Josh Zivalich, president of Teamsters Local 769 and president of Teamsters Joint Council 75, going to be here to share some thoughts on what their organization's done. Back after this.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So a week. Wow, that quick already? A week till Election Day. And it's interesting watching all of the interests trying to get out their members to vote. I cannot believe in this moment that there are people who haven't decided. I got to think everyone knows where they're going, and it's just a matter of encouraging people to get out and vote. The one who gets the most people to get to the polls generally wins. And here to share some thoughts on what they're doing, especially in the face of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters failure to endorse on the national level. I've asked Josh Zivalich to come talk with us. Josh is the president of Teamsters Local 769. He's also the president of Teamsters Joint Council 75. They have endorsed, and they endorsed Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Josh, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks for having me.
So let's start there. Your international failed to make a decision. You guys immediately jumped in and said, this is where we're going in Florida and Georgia and down in that region. Why?
Well, I mean, the reasons are numerous. The differences in the candidates, especially when it comes to organized labor and the Teamsters. I mean, we've got a friend in Vice President Harris. The pension, the multi-employer pension relief, which was part of the American Rescue Plan, has been talked about over and over and over again. And but it was so huge, right? That in and of itself, to me, would have been enough to give the endorsement to Vice President Harris. It saved my pension. It saved hundreds of thousands of Teamsters pensions in the Central States Fund, in the New England Fund, several others, and several outside of the Teamsters as well. And in Florida, we've been under attack with a very, very right-wing stream of the Republican Party that has made our jobs as union leaders very, very difficult. And so we've seen the worst, I believe, of the Republican Party when it comes to organized labor in Florida this last couple of legislative sessions. And that strain, if you will, of thought is in Project 2025 or Agenda 47. We weren't going to sit on the sidelines, and the other locals in Florida, felt the same way. Some. We weren't unanimous in our endorsement, but I can tell you that there were no locals in Florida or in Georgia that thought we should back Trump. Everybody was definitely on board that we should move in the right direction. There were a couple of folks that thought, well, let's just follow the international's lead. But certainly the lion's share, the overwhelming majority of our executive board said, let's endorse the Harris Walz ticket. And certainly in our local union, we were one of the first locals to come out for the Harris Walz ticket. And I'm proud of that.
No, look, it's a no-brainer. At this point, you pointed out the pension issue, and that's one thing. And as you pointed out, that should have been enough. But the second that you heard Trump and Elon Musk waxing poetic about about firing striking workers, that's like the cardinal sin, or should be the cardinal sin for organized labor, because it is the most important arrow in the negotiating quiver. That ability to put your hands in your pockets and march your feet out the door, that is sacrosanct in the world of labor. So to say that employers should have the ability to fire striking workers, that should have been it. He should have come out and said, that's it, you're done. But he didn't. He's come out with it was a strongly worded statement, but it wasn't you're done.
Yeah, I in a previous discussion I had with some friends and some colleagues, I pointed out that there's been numerous off-ramps for our general president here, including that, what happened there with the Elon Musk statement about the striking workers. And granted, he did make a statement, saying, hey, that's out of line, and it was a strong statement, but he didn't name Trump, right? And Trump was responsible for that. If somebody shows you and tells you, how they're going to be, believe them. And that's been his history. It's what we need to share with our members. I disagree with this viewpoint that education, our members don't want to be educated. Our members don't want to be told how to vote.
Sure.
No one wants to be told how to vote.
No,
However,
absolutely. But here's the thing, Josh, and I'm sure you've seen this as well as anyone. You've got Trump spokespeople running around saying that the internal polling that the IBT did, justifies the non-endorsement. And is is the membership that far gone that they're that far in Trump's camp that the numbers that they claim they got are there? And doesn't that really show a failure of leadership to educate the membership of the union's ultimate core priorities?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. We do when we organize new groups. It's part of the campaign to inoculate and to educate those workers on what to expect coming from their employer.
Right.
When we have contract campaigns, and I believe that the administration's done a very good job in educating, our members as they go into contract campaigns on, hey, here's what the issues are. Why not do the same thing on this? There couldn't be anything more important, right? And the Teamsters endorsement or non-endorsement is worth multi-million dollars.
Yep.
The non-endorsement of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz is a gift to the Trump campaign, especially in light of the fact that this race is so close. So, education is key. The Drive department stands, as you know, Rick, Democrat, Republican, Independent, voter education. Let's have those discussions. Let's share the records of the candidates. Let's discuss their agendas and what it's going to mean for organized labor and for our members, right, on their contracts. And then if the member says, you know what, thanks for the information, or stick it in your ear, I'm not interested, I've got this other issue and that's why I'm going to vote for this candidate, that's cool. But let's have those difficult discussions. And usually they're not that difficult because we're getting very good reception from at most of the gates. And we are doing some work to promote some of the candidates that, the IBT has asked us to in some of the battleground states. Unfortunately, Florida is not considered a battleground state, but we've got folks doing some really good work, member-to-member work at work sites and on the phones here in Florida, in 769 in South Florida, Western Florida, Tampa Bay area, Orlando, Jacksonville, and then certainly in Georgia, we've got folks that are doing a bang-up job there, and hopefully they can deliver Georgia. Hopefully they can deliver Florida too. But but certainly
Senate.
Georgia looks closer.
And the Senate as well. But here's the thing: if there is a positive, in my view, that has come out of Sean O'Brien's failure to endorse, I think it is because I think it's members coming forward and starting organizations and getting out there and doing the work that I believe the International should be doing. I haven't gotten a call from the International's political department saying, "Hey, Rick, as a member, this is where we're going." But I have gotten calls, I have gotten texts, I have gotten mailers from Teamsters Against Trump and other groups that are sending out stuff saying, hey, this is a really important election for us as Teamsters, as union members, to protect our contract, to protect the future of labor. So I think if there is something positive, it's that engagement of members taking some ownership that maybe they didn't plan on.
Yeah, I agree. I think that perhaps the atmosphere is that, we can do no wrong, so nobody was going to say anything. No, this is obvious. This is the emperor's new clothes. Why in the hell are we not getting out there and working for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz?
Yeah.
And yeah, look, I've got there's members in Local 769 that support Mr. Trump, and I respect their view if that's what they want to do. But let's have the discussion, and when the election's over, we're going to work together to make sure that they're represented well and that their contracts, we get them strong contracts, and they're welcome in our house. We're a big tent, always. But we're going to have the discussion as to who's pro-labor and who's anti-union.
Absolutely.
I mean, this isn't sublime. This is like the ridiculous, right? I mean, we've got somebody who wants to do away with unions versus somebody who wants to promote unions in Kamala Harris. So I don't shy away from that discussion.
Again, I think a failure of this moment to grab the bull by the horns, so to speak, and to educate. And for me, one of the things that I use is I try and remind people of how bad it was during the Trump years. And, for me, the most stark comparison I can use is the general counsel at the National Labor Relations Board. Under Donald Trump, it was a guy named Peter Robb. Peter Robb was evidently instrumental in firing the Patco workers back in '81 and has spent a career of union busting. The person that's in there now, Jennifer Abruzzo, has been nothing short of incredible and amazing, the best general counsel of the NLRB of my lifetime, hands down, giving us decisions that help to organize, that protect workers in the workplace, that make it easier to organize, all of this stuff. I keep coming back to no-brainer. Yeah.
And you know what? I knew that Peter Robb was awful for organized labor. I did not realize he was part of that, the thing back with Patco. So I appreciate the information and the education, right? The progress that has been made under this labor board, right? During the Obama administration, we had a very favorable decision at the labor board, and I believe it was involving Brown and Ferris, which is a waste company, over third-party employer, that they were a joint employer, right? And so very often what the employers would do in an organizing drive would say, oh, well, we're not the employer, this is actually the employer, and they would shield themselves from it. We got a very favorable decision. During the Trump administration, the NLRB went the other way under Peter Robb and reversed that. Well, now, under the Biden administration in the NLRB, we're getting some favorable decisions on Amazon. And that is a priority. Organizing Amazon is a priority, certainly for the Teamsters, and I applaud that. They put some really good work in it. And so we're getting favorable decisions that Amazon is a joint employer. And now we've got this golden opportunity to move that ball in the right direction and get a candidate elected who will, in all likelihood, continue that thought process and that legal precedent. But Trump is not going to deliver on that.
Right. So
before you go
any further, what's the punchline to this? If you're talking to someone about the joint employer rule, how important it is that we have it, and how it's going to help organize Amazon workers to give them better wages, hours, conditions, maybe rise their drivers up somewhere near to what our brothers and sisters at UPS earn to protect their jobs as well. What's the punchline in this for you then?
Well, I mean, by not endorsing, right, and going in a different direction where the labor board would go the other way and rule, no, they're not a joint employer, we're not going to be able to get them organized. We might have groups that are interested in us, that are willing to strike, that are willing to protest, but getting a contract will be next to impossible under that DSP model. And it's, then it also will negatively affect our UPS contract because it's going to put downward pressure on wages. It's not a funny punchline, but it's a reality.
It's not the punchline. The punchline, Josh.
Yeah.
The punchline simply, Josh, is that when Donald Trump was president, he overturned that decision. So what makes me think as president again, he won't do what he's already done? What makes me think that that the Teamsters have spent an incredible amount of resource to get to this point, only to have Lucy pull the football away again?
Right. Yeah. No, there's been no reason for anybody to think that Mr. Trump wouldn't go in that direction. And in fact, to the contrary. And the Heritage Foundation writing this Project 2025, manifesto on gutting, labor rights, amongst other things, the NLRB, OSHA, all of the important agencies that help us in representing employees. I'm glad they put it in writing. I couldn't believe they put it in writing, but glad that they did, because it's scary as hell.
Yeah, well, one shows their arrogance, but two, if you've been following the Heritage Foundation and the Competitive Enterprise Institute and the American Legislative Exchange Council and all of the state policy network think tanks in every state, if you follow them, this is all stuff that's been circulating their incestuous pool for decades. This is the conservative wet dream list just put into one 900-page document. Not a lot of this is new. This has been their agenda for decades. They just now feel with Trump, they got someone who's going to go, yeah, whatever. Throw it out. I'll sign it as long as I get to have a big party and you pat me on the back. That to me is what this is.
Yeah, I agree. And I think they feel emboldened. Again, I'm operating in Florida where a lot of times the legislature, it's kind of bizarro land on the arrogance because they have a supermajority. We're working hard to try to undo that supermajority. And there are some Republicans that we work with here down in the state of Florida.
Sure.
But a lot of them are scared. They're scared of Ron DeSantis. They're scared of Donald Trump. And that's an awful place, I believe, for the Republican Party to be. I'm hopeful and pray, and I'm working my tail off along with my team to get Kamala Harris elected. And I think not only for our country, it's going to be a good thing. Yeah. But I think it's going to be good for the Republican Party, because I think they're going to realize we got to turn the page.
Yeah, I don't think they can at this moment. I think they're bought and paid for at this moment. But I am old enough to remember, and I think you may be as well, where there were pro-labor Republicans. Sure. The idea that Sean O'Brien's going to tell me Josh Hawley, J.D. Vance, that they're pro-labor Republicans, that's not my kind of pro-labor.
No, sir. I couldn't agree with you more. And it's an about face from where O'Brien was back in, I think it was in 2018 after the State of the Union address. When
Trump is our enemy. Yeah. Very, very direct. Trump is our enemy. He is against everything we stand for. He was very clear, very articulate. I loved that Sean O'Brien. I voted for that Sean O'Brien.
Yeah. I think he said, like you said, make no mistake, Trump is our enemy. And he spoke to, all of the things he was trying to undo that we have worked so hard for many years on. And as he said, real Teamsters aren't scared to speak up, and they aren't scared to fight on this issue, right? I think that's what some of us are doing.
That's it. That's what I said at the beginning. You're speaking my language, Sean. I'm right there. And as he said in his RNC speech, I'm on a seniority list. I'm going to be okay. And that's the thing. This is what democracy looks like. You may not like it. You may not like watching the sausage being made, but this is what democracy looks like. And if you don't like it, maybe you're not for democracy. So last line of questioning I've got for you, because you're out there on the doors, you're out there shaking hands and all of that. What's the message? Give me that pitch that you're giving folks to help get them out. Because ultimately, I got to think that this is really about getting people motivated to vote more than it's about changing hearts and minds. Yes, no?
Yes. I mean, one of the things that we're doing, right? I mean, the whole get out the vote effort, right, is it's making sure folks are registered to vote, which that time has long since passed, right? But that's where we started. Then it was, education, persuasion, right? And then having some discussions with folks, make sure they knew where their early voting sites are, right? And if you're back at that same place a day or two later, hey, brother, did you go vote? You can vote in this county, anywhere. It's where our get out the vote folks, our PFOs are really doing that job. I think it's my message, right? And it's been, whether it comes down to, hey, brother, we've got a pension and our pension is saved because of, Kamala Harris, casting that vote. And by the way, Donald Trump had the opportunity twice when he was president to sign that bill. He did not.
Yep.
He made sure it didn't come to his desk. That speaks volumes. And there's all those other issues. Folks have other issues with Mr. Trump and his kind of, horrible behavior towards women, towards minorities. And those are all just things that I believe our organization, I mean, I'm a second generation Teamster. My father worked for Mr. Hoffa Sr. and was very involved in the civil rights movement. And I believe deeply in our Constitution, where it says that, we're to, get behind all workers, regardless of race, religion, creed, gender. I'm a firm believer in that. And just some of the outrageous behavior from Mr. Trump, I think, is a disqualifier. But if you throw in his anti-labor agenda as well, it's a no-go.
It's a no-brainer.
It's absolutely a no-go for me.
No, it's a no-brainer. Josh, I appreciate the time. Good on you. Good on Joint Council 75 and all your members. Get out there and get on the doors, and let's hope for the best.
Rick, I appreciate you having me on, and can I send you one?
Absolutely. Please
all right,
do.
Brother.
Thank you so much. Josh Zivalich, president of Teamsters Local 769, also president of Teamsters Joint Council 75. I want to hear your thoughts. Are you hearing messaging? Are people knocking on your doors? Is the education happening? Or in this case, hey, you got to get out there? I want to hear it. Rick at thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, redstate.com, they got an article. Quite comical, to be honest with you. The headline reads, and this is the headline over at redstate.com. So if the FCC has a problem with it, redstate.com is where it came from, citing my source. Wankers of the world unite. They said a pro-Harris PAC goes hard after key wanker American demographic. And what they're saying is look, there's a group that's affiliated with the Kamala Harris and the Walz campaign that are running an ad with a young man alone in his room, doing with what we're told young men do alone in their room while watching porn on his phone. And they had, somebody dressed up as your stereotypical conservative Republican jumping in, saying that they're gonna rub out your porn. Now, what I find weird about this is, what we know from the numbers, porn is overwhelmingly consumed in conservative states. Utah, right there at the top. So this would actually rub Utah the wrong way. And here to share some thoughts on just how crazy this election has gotten and how ads like this have grabbed our attention. That's my good friend, former Ohio Congressman and political analyst, Bob Ney, to come share some thoughts. Bob, thanks for taking time for us.
Well, thank you, Rick. You didn't leave me any lines, None. I mean, what can I say?
Clearly it rubbed you the wrong way because you sent it to me and asking, is this real?
I've got to hand it to you, I've just got to hand it to you. I mean...
Oh, yeah. And then you run with it after that. Clearly. No, but, the thing is, and we were just saying a minute ago, it shows how far we have to go to get people's attention because this got your attention, didn't it?
Oh, yes. I thought it was the Onion. I thought it was an AI makeup that, was false. And then I sent it to you to say, is this real? Because I knew you'd know. And I thought, okay, it's real, which is amazing.
It does show. It does show for a second, though, Bob. How far we're drilling down for voters. This is targeted at young men. And look, I believe young women consume it as, I'm not being sexist, but it's pointed at them going, hey, they're going to take it. They're going to take your porn away. And they're doing this in 7 battleground states. They got a $2.5 million ad buy. And I would argue that that's not where this ad should be placed. It should be placed in red states because it's Republicans, conservative Republicans who do want to take porn away.
Mm-hmm. Is it is it legislation or what are they trying to do?
Yeah, there is a piece of legislation, like a lot. There's a lot of messaging legislation out there. And one of them here is on age verification, which, to be honest, I'm not 100% against. I don't want 8 and 9-year-olds looking at this stuff. I don't want teenagers really to have access to it. But, it's this once it's the slippery slope that they tell us about guns. Once they get their foot in the door and start limiting, well, they're going to start limiting it out of existence.
Sort of like rock and roll and rap and now porn.
Yep. So. And the weird thing is it's only by doing this, you only make the issue more appealing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But, it shows, what it shows me is 2 things. One, we got to do an awful lot to get people's attention nowadays because of how weird this campaign has been. And 2, just, how micro-targeting we are, that someone thinks this crowd is important.
Somebody did some surveys somewhere. That's what it's about. And you're right about the micro-targeting. Republicans are going after the Latinos and Democrats are going after certain, groups of people. So there is a lot of targeting.
You brought up the Latinos. I'm sure you saw on Sunday during Trump's Madison Square Garden rally, you had this comedian who I've never heard of, Hinchcliffe or something like that, who
I've never heard of.
He said, quote, these Latinos, they love making babies too. Just know that that they do. There's no pulling out, he says. I guess this is a porn reference. They don't do that, he said. They blank inside just like they did to our country. And he said that Puerto Rico is the Puerto Rican, Puerto Rico is a floating island of garbage, I think he said.
Right. It's one thing they can make a certain joke, people make jokes and of course you got to be more careful because humor today is not accepted like it used to be.
But I don't see a joke in that. Where's the punchline?
Well, that's what I'm saying. You can make jokes, but when you talk about, Puerto Rico's floating garbage, what do you want to say that for?
Yeah.
Especially in the election at a campaign rally. Why would you want to say that?
Now, what's interesting, the Puerto Rican recording artist, Bad Bunny, who again I don't know very well.
I know Bad Bunny. I do, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, Bad Bunny came out on Sunday right after this and offered support for Kamala Harris for president, and this is a big part of this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Bad Bunny's got a following.
Yeah, and also, the reality is where I'm at in Pennsylvania. Maybe people don't know this, but Pennsylvania has a very, very large Puerto Rican community. A lot of the people, Allentown has a sizable Puerto Rican community because you have all the people coming from New York. So you have Reading, a very sizable Lancaster, a very sizable Puerto Rican community. This is a big voting demographic in Pennsylvania. So, this isn't just a one-off, hey, we said something stupid in New York. This could resonate, I think, and could get Trump not to be able to win Pennsylvania.
Well, yeah, I mean, all these pieces can affect these candidates because Trump's strategy, as you know, is to reaffirm the base, reaffirm the base, reaffirm the base. Hence, some of the outrageous things that are said either by him or by surrogates or people at the rallies. Whereas Harris is taking and needs to, a different approach to have a bigger umbrella, a wider tent to try to get people. And that includes, obviously, Republicans. I think that the chief of staff, for example, John Kelly comment where he said, Trump, is a fascist. He admired Hitler's generals, etc. That has struck a nerve because J.D. Vance now is saying, well, he coordinated with the Harris campaign, which he didn't. He said this in accordance to a book. So everything's up for grabs. And again, the Republican part of it is up for grabs. The percentage of Republicans who would have voted for Trump against Biden, now they're unsure. Some of them, and I have talked to people that right now, and they're Republican, and they are just really wavering. They just don't know. Trump, Harris, Trump, Harris. So she's went, I think, up to about maybe 10% Republicans, by the way. Biden was at 5%. Everything counts this election. So you're right. Targeting, and targeting.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday on the program, I talked to my friend Sarah Burris, reporter at Raw Story, and she told me that the story, and this is what I've read as well, that Trump was talking to Kelly over Kelly's son's grave, and basically asking the question, well, what did they get out of it? And I got to tell you, the stories that Kelly is telling. If you have any respect for anyone who wears the uniform, I don't know how you can vote for someone like Trump, who reportedly has called, soldiers who've died suckers and losers. And, the thing with John McCain, there's just so much there that is repulsive. I'm struggling with this.
Again, I think that, Trump's whole motive here, because he is, quote, ahead here and there, in battleground states, I say here and there, and that may not be completely accurate, but because of that, the idea is, okay, well, if I'm ahead and I'm ahead in the battleground states and I've taken a little bit more percentage and she's went a little bit, quote, stale, as the Trump campaign saying, then I reaffirm my base because it's got me this far. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thinking.
I just don't know if there's any thinking, to be honest, because none of it makes any sense. But let me ask you this, because I got this Kelly thing I'm stuck on, because I'm stuck on it in a couple of ways. If you're standing, if your child were killed, your child's buried in Arlington, and there's somebody standing there next to you asking what did they get out of it, I think I react in a very, very unprofessional way. I don't care who you are. How do you react to that?
Well, I had a party official who said something in reference to why my son was not over in Iraq, and my son had a bone tumor and was precluded at that time from going. By the way, he tried to get in. He got in this year at 40 years old, finally.
Wow.
So anyway, 40 years old. And, I turned to the guy and I said, we don't have a draft. Because he had written a letter to the newspaper. So when the event ended, I did what I think probably you would do. I said, okay, the event's over. Let's go out back. I want to fist fight you.
Yeah. No, it wouldn't.
And he said, what? and the other party official was there. And I said, I'm going to take you back outside. And I'm going to whoop you. And the party guy smiled, the other party guy. And he said, well, the newspaper changed my letter. I said, okay. But yeah, I threatened to fist fight him. I wanted to fist fight him.
No, sure. See, that's where my mind went.
If you're at your child's grave, wow, you're going to want to.
How do you not? I mean, I got to be honest. How do you not? I don't care who it is, president of the United States or not. I don't know. He's got more restraint than I've got.
Maybe this is Kelly's punchback, to tell what he's heard.
Most certainly.
I mean, I was asked the other day on a radio station about some of the officials in the administration. Look, you can have staff people that don't agree with you, don't like you, and then they'll say something, right? And you can say something about them. But this is so broad-based and so many, and it's historical. Yep. You've never had a White House that has had so many top people, chiefs of staff, advisors, NSA advisors. You've never had so many that are just out after him, including the vice president of the United States that was his vice president. I mean, think about this. That's pretty historic on the amount of people at a high level as Republicans that have turned on him. Yeah. It's historic.
No, look, you can say one or two people were disgruntled. You could say one or two people just had an axe to grind. Sure. But when you're talking about the extensive list from top to bottom, people who you've known for a long time, people that you've said were the very best people, only to throw them under a bus. At some point, the problem is you. But here's the thing, and I think you hit on it a second ago. The polls are all over the place. I saw the CBS YouGov poll that has Harris up by a point. I saw battleground states that are, they're tied 50-50. One goes this way, one goes that way. Is it possible? And look, I don't pay a lot of attention to the polls, but is it possible that they're wrong in a big way, and this time not in Trump's favor? Because I don't know that they're looking at the demographic that I'm looking at. I got to think women are going to come out in a big way this time because of the abortion issue. And then throw on top of that, this is the guy who said, he sees a woman he likes, he moves on her like a you-know-what and grabs her by the you-know-where.
Well, the states have had a heavy early turnout. I asked down our Board of Elections in Ohio, in St. Clairsville, and they've had an unusual heavy turnout, and that's happening a lot. It's happening in Georgia, in other states, Pennsylvania. So we know the turnout is going to be big. You're not going to see what we would have seen had Joe Biden remained on the ticket. And here's what I think we would have seen. People saying, can't make a choice. I'm so disgusted. I don't care. Kamala Harris brought new energy. No question about it. Now, these go in cycles, and it seems that Trump has gained here and there. But if you really look at it, and of course it's polling, I don't like to live or die by polling, but if you look at it, of the 91 polls, and then you start to look at the battleground states and look at the different polling, the ones that are credible.
More reputable, sure. Not Rasmussen.
Yeah, the ones that are credible. And if you look at those polls, you have one that has Trump up 0.06. A next poll in the same state has Harris up 0.09. I mean, the polling is basically all over the place. I think with margin of error, and of course there's turnout, you got to turn people out. But I think you make a good point about the abortion issue. Also, the fact that, and I think it's a big deal, if Biden had 5% of the Republicans and Harris is up at 10 and she can get to 12 or 13, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
So there's groups that are out there, depends on the voter turnout. But yeah, I think this whole thing is absolutely up for grabs. And I know it's right around the corner. I'm fully aware of that. But things that happen in the next 6, 7, 8 days, will have an impact. So I think it's open and up for grabs.
Yeah. See, I'm of the mindset. I'm the more I'm talking to people, the more I'm seeing. I think this is going to be a sizable victory vote count for Harris, potentially with a good size electoral victory. And the question that I come to, if Trump loses, what does that mean for the Republican Party? Will we be mired in 4 more years of election denial? And please do.
I can answer. I watched the Sunday shows this weekend, and then we're Monday came, and we're into this whole big important week, and I have had more conversations in the last 2 or 3 days with people asking me and having this discourse of where the Republican Party goes. Of course, these are all Republicans. Some of them are elected,
of which you are as well. You are a registered Republican.
Right. Yes, I'm registered Republican. And so the party activists, here's my take on it. If Trump loses, the amount of triangulation, which, by the way, we talked about Bill Clinton triangulating the Democrats, and he went with us when I was in Congress of working for welfare and balanced budgets and this and that, and yielded to some things. And we did too to him. But the point is, it was called triangulation. In other words, the White House protects itself, and they do it at the cost of anyone. Okay, that's triangulation in politics. And the people who have feared Trump, who aren't happy, they're elected, but they fear him. They fear him because he says anything and he'll come after you, and he's got rich friends, and they'll spend, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars against you. I believe, and I don't buy the theory that, he loses, he's right back at it again. Absolutely not. He'll have court cases, his age, his business. It's not going to happen. So I believe that people will begin to distance themselves from him, and in a lot of cases begin to say, well, we have a new path we have to take. And these are going to be previous pro-Trump loyalists. Now, not Marjorie Taylor 3 names, but average members, average political people in different positions. Rick, I argue like this, like a hot potato I'm not saying they'll trash him horrifically, but they're going to make their own way. The party will begin to move on. Now, the hardcore Donald Trump shoots somebody, I love him people, all right? Those people, they're going to bolt from the Republican Party, but they're going to be so biased that when a Democrat runs again, some will come back. So that's not going to be a complete permanent deal. But I think the average Republican office holder will say, okay, time to move on. Because look, I was out there. It's fast. Triangulation is fast.
Yeah. And then the question I guess I follow up that with is, how does that work if Harris does win and the Republicans take the Senate and the Democrats have the House? Because that seems to be kind of how this may work out. Does that mean she gets anything done, or do we have 4 more years of gridlock?
Well, I think she can get a few things done. They need to be smart about the approach and what they want to do, and they need to, push the buttons. Clinton did it, with Republicans. He did it in an atmosphere with Gingrich to a certain extent that nobody ever thought, could be done. Some of it I didn't like what they did, but nobody thought it could be done. So yes, it can. Let me say one other thing about Kamala Harris if she becomes Madam President. And this is important. I heard a conservative this past weekend go on and on about it doesn't matter if Trump wins. If Kamala Harris wins, it is the end as we know it. This is what will happen midterm, blah, blah, blah. Every county commissioner is going to lose. Remember when Barack Obama was elected and people said, this is actually great. Wait till you see how they're going to destroy Obama when he runs again. Obama won Ohio.
Well, we will see it, and I'm going to remember this prediction because I happen to agree with you. We'll see how it plays out. But Bob, as always, I appreciate the time, your expertise, always great stuff.
Thank you, Rick.
Our good friend Bob Ney. I want to hear your thoughts. Or do you see someone like Trump, a little Trump, rising up? Maybe Josh Hawley. No, that's stupid. I'm not going there. I want to hear your thoughts, though. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1929. That bleak day is now known as Black Tuesday, the day of the stock market crash that marked the start of the Great Depression. During the optimistic Roaring '20s, investments in the stock market soared. Between 1924 and 1929, the Dow Jones Industrial Average quadrupled. By 1929, 2 of every $5 borrowed in bank loans were spent on stock investments. As stock investors overextended themselves, they failed to read troubling economic signs. Farm communities were sliding into an economic depression. Consumer credit was reaching unsustainable levels. The first signs, or trouble, began on Black Thursday, October 24th, when the market lost 11% of its value. Then on Monday, it slid another 13%. By Tuesday, the market opened in a melee. In the first 30 minutes, 13 million shares were sold. At the time, stock transactions were recorded on ticker tape. According to Time magazine, by the end of the panic-filled day, 15,000 miles of ticker tape had been printed. The final totals were devastating. The market had dropped another 12%. Stocks continued to fall over the next few weeks. In all, $25 billion was lost. That equals more than $300 billion in today's money. The events of 1929 signaled the beginning of a global economic depression. The depression was devastating for working people. Before the depression, there were 25,000 banks in the United States. By 1933, 11,000 of them had failed. Families saw their entire life savings wiped away overnight. Unemployment soared to 25%. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt implemented his New Deal policies to put people back to work. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
So more than 1,000 religious leaders have come out to endorse Kamala Harris. And, look, this is bolstering Harris's cred with the faith community. And look, this is where Donald Trump's support, oddly enough, given the fact that here's a guy who views the Ten Commandments as a to-do list, as a checklist, if you will, to have 1,000 faith leaders coming out and endorsing her, kind of a big deal. And, whenever this happens, I always ask the question, could this be the revival of actual Christian values? As someone who grew up in the Catholic Church, I still remember old school Catholic teachings. It was about peace and social justice. It was about the teachings of Jesus and not, it was about the money, don't get me wrong. There was still a lot of money there, but it was about peace and social justice. It was about love. Love thy neighbor as yourself. It was about compassion. Blessed are the meek; they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. I remember this stuff and go, isn't that who we should be? Humility. Being humble to others. Humility is nowhere in Donald Trump's vocabulary. Serving others, helping others, it's crazy. The idea of integrity, living a life of honesty and decency and moral uprightness. That's a fundamental Christian value, being truthful in your words and your actions. That's Proverbs. Look, I am not a biblical scholar by any stretch of the imagination, but, I do remember those sermons because I had to go every week because we had to put an envelope in the collection plate every week. And every Monday the phone would ring and they would berate my mother for the fact that there was no money in the envelope because we didn't have any. But I still paid attention. I was an altar boy for a very short period of time as well, until they threw me out because I kept ringing the bells at the wrong time. But I did learn some of the lessons about community, about fellowship, about service to others, especially the marginalized, the needy, the downtrodden. You don't kick the helpless. The idea of justice and hope and all of these things that make us better. I'm of the mindset, and have been for a very long time, that religion should make us better, should lift us up instead of tear us apart. And yet, I look at our evangelical crowd to where it really is about how we rip each other to shreds and hooray for me and prosperity gospel, I need to be rich. When I don't ever remember Jesus talking about that. I do remember, the money changers and flipping over the tables in the church, which a whole nother thing. But here we are. So could this be the beginning of a return to real, true Christian values? I'd love to hear from my Christian friends. Is this what the corner doth turn? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Miss any portion of the program? Podcast. Wherever you get your favorite podcast, you'll find ours. For the video, freespeech.org. You can find it there, our section there. And as always, I appreciate you being here. Thanks so much. See you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.